Hi everyone. It's a lovely day out here today, so I decided that I would make use of the nice weather and do a few videos outside. Apologies if it's a little bit dark or shaded or anything. It's a little bit difficult to get the light right out here, especially when it's sunny. And I also apologise if I'm a little bit distracted and if there are meowing noises, because my cat is sort of wandering around here and she's a little bit bothered by the fact that I'm sitting here seemingly talking to nobody. She doesn't like when people talk on the phone either. She gets very confused, so we might have to deal with that. So today I'm going to do the next episode of the Tarot of the Gods series, and I've decided that I will start doing some of the requests that I've been getting. I still have lots of other deities who haven't been requested that I really want to get to, so I might kind of intersperse them and do every other video that I'll do a deity that has been requested. So the very first deity that was requested, and I think it's a very good request because it is a deity, or well, she's not technically a deity, but I'll get to that in a second, who is very popular in the pagan community, particularly from what I've seen amongst Wiccans, and that is Quan Yin. So Quan Yin is technically a boddhisattva. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, one of those words, you know, that you've read loads but you haven't actually heard that many people say it, which is essentially in the Buddhist religion or tradition, a figure who is enlightened, who has achieved enlightenment, who has become a Buddha, but rather than remaining in that sort of enlightened state and ascending to nirvana or whatever, the bodhisattva has actually returned to earth in order to help other people achieve enlightenment. So they're almost in this sort of limbo state is how I often see it. My understanding of this now is pretty rudimentary. I'm not particularly familiar with Buddhism or indeed with many Asian religions or traditions. Or religious traditions at all. But that's my understanding of it. It's this sort of limbo state, and it's sort of brought about by compassion because the bodhisattva has achieved enlightenment, but they then are struck by this when they realise how joyful, or how, maybe joyful isn't the right word, but how freeing and how liberating and how much they are just completely free from suffering. They then, through huge compassion and love for the rest of humanity, they then want to turn back and help everyone else achieve this state. So Kwan Yin is a perfect example of this because she essentially embodies compassion and love and generosity and kindness. But although her entire being is suffused with love and joy and kindness, there is also this darker aspect to her in that it's quite a difficult path for her. It's not easy to be watching humanity's suffering. It's not easy to be that related to the world, to be that compassionate and watching all that suffering and watching people remain tied to their egos, remain tied to the sort of trap of reincarnation and being unable to be enlightened, or just generally watching any sort of suffering or pain that we are going through. It's very difficult for her, particularly because she is so compassionate. So yeah, one thing I noticed while I was thinking about her and reading about her and thinking about tarot cards was something that I'm sure has been mentioned by a lot of people before, but hadn't actually occurred to me before, is that there are a lot of comparisons that can be made between her and Jesus Christ. This extremely compassionate, loving figure who is enlightened or in some way at least partially divine or connected very strongly with the divine, whose sole mission it is to help other people escape suffering and achieve this amazing sort of blissful reunion with the divine. And this does require some sacrifice on the part of, say, Kwan Yin or Jesus Christ. So without further ado, I'm going to start talking about the cards that I've chosen. The first card was Strength. Okay, so Strength is a card that maybe, I do feel that there were quite a lot of different interpretations, as with I suppose all 78 cards, but particularly with Strength there are a lot of different ways you can go with this, and you might be focusing on the Maiden, you might be focusing on the Lion. A lot of tarot decks, they don't have this sort of dual kind of balance between the Maiden and the Lion. They don't have the two opposing forces. They will sometimes just have, say in the Wild Unknown, I believe strength is, oh, maybe I'm thinking of the Chariot. No, never mind. I actually can't remember what strength is in, but I think it's just one figure. I think it could be, I was thinking it was a horse, but actually I think it's possibly a lion. But I don't think we have the interchange between the two forces. I could be wrong. But essentially this card, instead of focusing on the lion and the importance of the maybe muted strength of the lion, I'm focusing on the power of the maiden here. And this maiden, maybe more than any other figure in the 78 cards in the Rider-Waite anyway, she is quite, she's depicted quite similarly to how Kwan Yin is often depicted, in sort of white garments. She's very kind and loving looking, she has a very gentle expression on her face, sort of almost like an innocence in a way. And she's harnessing the power of this lion. But the way I'm understanding it here is that the lion is representing the ego and our desires, our fears, and all of that emotion that churns within us, which in the Buddhist understanding of things is something to be let go of, something to be stepped back from in order to achieve enlightenment. So whether or not you ascribe to a Buddhist-like understanding of the world, and I would say that in some ways I do, and in some ways I really don't. But I definitely agree with the feeling of the idea of needing to somewhat remove yourself from the ego, somewhat remove yourself from ego-driven emotions and desires and fears, and the way that we can get sucked into constantly thinking about the past or the future. When we are constantly in our own heads and being driven by our egos, we are generally being driven towards something that we think we want, or away from something that we are afraid of, that we don't want. And a lot of the time this will be necessary for our survival somewhat. For example, we might have this burning desire for a particular job. Okay, so we need a job, we need to make money to survive. But at the same time, positive psychology has demonstrated that even if we do achieve that job that we really, really wanted, we're not actually going to be happier for very long after we achieve that. We will have an initial boost of happiness, that sort of success, and the Six of Wands moment, where yes, victory, this is what I wanted, but then very quickly we return to our base level of happiness. So chasing after these things, or running away from things, and attempting to change our outer existence to be in alignment with what our ego wants is not actually the best way to achieve happiness. And I think a certain level of detachment is necessary, but more than that, it's very important to remain in the now, to pay attention to our state of mind, to pay attention to the unfolding moment. And I think that's what strength in this instance can be all about allowing those emotions and that ego and those fears and desires to be there. We're human, they're going to be there, there's nothing we can do about that. But at the same time managing to somewhat transcend them, to sit with them, allow them to happen, but to acknowledge that we don't have to be completely driven by them. We can find the joy and the peace in the current moment, even if there are a lot of things going on in our outer lives that we want to change or whatever. So yeah, this is a really important card for me when it comes to Kwan Yin, because of that. It essentially demonstrates for me her ability and her power in reminding us to sit with the moment, to allow ourselves to be at peace. And in this way she is removing our suffering, not necessarily through intervening or acting, but through calming us, through allowing us to not suffer even if bad things are happening to us, or even if we're not achieving the things that we want to achieve. There will be some things in life that will make us suffer, and that's okay, but being able to move past that after it happens, after the bad thing happens, you know, after the pain or the disappointment or the failure, looking to Kwan Yin can help us, remind us that we don't have to drop anger there, we don't have to stay there, we can just experience it and then move forward and move back to a state of calm and peace and greater happiness. The second card I chose is the Six of Cups. I chose this as a reminder that although Kwan Yin is all about that sort of lofty enlightenment and that sort of esoteric level of being freed from the ego and from reincarnation and achieving enlightenment and all that kind of thing. And the Six of Cups is also a reminder that she represents the small acts of kindness in her lives as well. She is a figure of immense compassion and selflessness. She gives of herself so that people don't have to suffer. While her ultimate goal is for us to achieve enlightenment, I feel like there's a very important aspect of her as well, that she just sort of wants to make our lives easier as well. She is depicted as being constantly looking down on the world. She is constantly listening to the cries of the world and responding to them. So she's in relationship with the world. She's not just removed and a figure that we can look up to and be inspired by. She is also often depicted in stories shown as somebody who actually steps in and tries to help and takes action in order to help ordinary people. I also feel that the Six of Cups reminds us that if we do manage to achieve a state of greater awareness and consciousness, being more present in the now and therefore being happier, we are more likely to be compassionate, we are more likely to help others and to be more selfless. Because if we're willing to let go of that ego-driven desire to achieve more, get more, a bigger house, a bigger car, a better job, if we manage to let go of all that, we are more likely to see that small acts of kindness and generosity are actually more likely to make us happier. And when we are happier, we make other people happier. First of all, because we are just nicer to be around, if we are smiling and relaxed and happy, any sort of emotion that you exude, other people are going to pick up on and respond to, and they're going to some extent take on that emotion themselves. So being happy yourself is one of the best things you can do to make other people happy. But it's proven that being happy also makes people more generous. It makes them more inclined to do things for other people. And I think that's because when we become more aware of the now and we open our eyes and we actually start to look around us and experience the world properly, not just in a very closed off sort of way, when we have sort of a filter that we're seeing the world through, if we're constantly filtering the world through this ego-driven desire for whatever it is, we're only going to maybe help somebody if it's going to help ourselves or if it's going to help us get to that goal. But once that goal is sort of less important or drops away somewhat, once we're more focused on now, on how we feel right now, on achieving what we want to feel in life in the now, we are much more likely to act from a place of love, of caring for other people, because we start to feel our relationship with other people more, and we start to feel the importance of being sort of in harmony and at peace with other people. So yeah, I feel like the Six of Cups is a really important card for Kwan Yin, and it definitely has that feeling of innocence, of purity that she has about her. She definitely has this, in a way it seems a bit innocent maybe, that this idea that, I want to stop the world's suffering, and I think that's something that the Six of Cups definitely picks up on. So in contrast to that, I decided to talk about the Ten of Wands as well, because while the Six of Cups is all about the kind of innocent, giving, compassionate, caring sort of really pure intentions kind of thing, the Ten of Wands is reminding us that all of this selflessness, all of this giving is really hard work, is really difficult. Kwan Yin in several stories is depicted as because she is so overwhelmed by the cries of the world, by the suffering, her head shatters into many pieces, and she ends up being given 11 heads. And then her arms, as she's trying to reach out to help people, her arms shatter, and I think she has 8 arms, I think, in many depictions. So she is being sort of pulled and strained, her resources are being stretched to their limit. And that is what she's all about. She's all about this person who will put everyone else first. And while this is part of what Kwan Yin is all about, I definitely feel like there is a warning element to it. And the Ten of Wands, when drawn, is generally interpreted to have a warning element to it. But there's definitely, maybe when it comes to Kwan Yin, more of a balance with that. There's maybe this suggestion that because she is enlightened, she is able to give of herself in this way without permanently damaging herself. I mean, she is changed, she is transformed by her crippling love, but she continues to be, she continues to give, she just grows more arms, she grows more heads because she needs them. So I think maybe Kuan Yin reminds us that the Ten of Wands doesn't always have to be a negative card. The person is definitely working very hard and they're maybe not receiving the support that they want or need. But yeah, maybe we should think about the idea that sometimes it is nurturing to be that selfless, to put other people first and to really bear that burden for a while. I definitely wouldn't advocate it all the time, but yeah, it's just food for thought. I wish I actually had the Shadowscapes deck with me right now. I don't, but I think I might put the image in, insert it into the video here. The Shadowscapes deck, the Ten of Wands, is actually a little bit different. It's not initially so negative looking as the Rider-Waite. I mean, the Rider-Waite, he's sort of, he's being blinded by his burden. He can't even see the way forward. He looks like he's really struggling. The Ten of Wands in the Shadowscapes deck, however, is more about that feeling of achievement. When we put ourselves wholly into something. It shows a woman who is sort of shaped like a tree. She has her roots, I think, in the ground. She's grown from the ground, you know. She has these firm solid roots, this firm tree trunk, and she's bent over double. She is bearing on her back an entire city in her branches. This is how I remember it now. I haven't actually looked at this card in a while, so forgive me if the image is slightly different to what I remember. But what I like about that is there is this suggestion she's bent over double, so she is carrying great burden, but there is this prosperous city growing in her branches on her back. And that wouldn't be there if she hadn't sacrificed herself in that way. So I think that's definitely worth thinking about when it comes to the Ten of Wands and Kwan Yin in general. So I had a little bit of difficulty deciding on the last card because there were, as usual, a couple of different cards that I thought were really relevant. So first of all, I wanted to talk about a court card, but I couldn't choose one that I was really completely happy with. But I went with the Page of Cups in the end for various reasons. Now, the Page of Cups, the pages in the Rider-Waite do kind of look kind of male, but I feel that the energy of the page is generally quite feminine and kind of androgynous. I think this comes across in most decks. So the Page of Cups, sorry, I just realised that the cards are probably in the sun, so I hope you can actually see them. Maybe I should hold them on the side. No, I don't know. So the Page of Cups strikes me as somebody who is enthusiastic about their relationships with others. So the suit of cups for me is all about relationship. It's about emotion and the kind of the psyche and stuff like that. But when it comes to, particularly with the court cards, I feel like it's all about relationship, our relationship with other people, our inevitable relationships with other people, because none of us exist in a void. And the Page of Cups for me is somebody who is just very enthusiastic about giving their all to those relationships and really putting themselves out there. And in this instance with Kwan Yin, I'm associating the Page of Cups with her unconditional love. And her desire to always kind of reach out, and her enthusiasm for reaching out to the world and helping people and taking on their pain. So I also liked this card because there's a fish in it, because the page is holding a cup with a fish, and Kwan Yin is actually often associated with seamen or fishermen. She's almost like a patron of well, motherhood and children and things like that as well, but also of fishermen and seamen, sea people, people who go fishing in boats. So this comes from a story where she saved this, I think it was some sort of dragon king, sea deity type figure, who had been caught by a fisherman while in the form of a fish, and because they were on the land they weren't able to transform back into a dragon and get back to the sea, so they appealed to Kwan Yin to help them, and Kwan Yin did. She managed to retrieve the fish and return the fish to the sea, for which the Dragon King was extremely grateful. So she's associated with this sort of the sea and fishing and things like that, which I think demonstrates her association generally with emotions and caring and deep love, deep unconditional love. And there's also a nurturing kind of aspect there too. Although she is And as the Strength card sort of taps into, she's quite an ascetic figure, and she's quite androgynous, and she is generally considered, nowadays she's generally depicted as being a woman, but she's still often considered to be androgynous, or to be both male and female. It's not considered to be that important often whether she's male and female, because once you're enlightened it doesn't matter, you've kind of moved beyond your gender or your sex. Yeah, I think that kind of, there is that sense with Kwan Yin that she is sort of this, that she is above and beyond the mundane, that she is beyond gender or sex, that she's very ascetic, she's not grounded or earthy. But her association with the sea kind of hints otherwise, and perhaps hints that there might, maybe, this is completely off the top of my head now, but maybe there are roots with a different figure or deity that was connected with the sea, because she strikes me in those stories as being a lot more grounded and rooted in community and that kind of thing. And just a kind of want to make a last little mention of the Five of Pentacles, because it hadn't really struck me, but I was going through the deck, and then it kind of caught my eye when I was going through it. I think I've pretty much covered all of the themes that the Five of Pentacles might suggest. This the sense of her being somebody who comes to the aid of people who are in need, who are suffering. And I mean, in this card, the people who are suffering, they were out in the cold, and so we're maybe looking at Kwan Yin as she will help them if she can, but she is suffering with them, you know, and there's only so much she can do. So she is looking down in the world and hearing all these cries, but there's only so much that she can do to help them. Possible comparisons that can be made between her and Jesus are interesting. I didn't really go into that a huge amount. The card that I would associate with that the most would be the Ten of Wands. There is this feeling of having a cross to bear, and this idea of both of them are shown to be somebody who will take on the sins or the bad karma of other people so that they can be freed. So Jesus dies on the cross, he sacrifices himself to save everyone's souls, and similarly Kwan Yin is often shown to take on other people's karmic debt, and to descend then to hell-like kind of places in order to allow other people to be freed, because she is just so struck with compassion for people who are suffering in these states, and that she would rather suffer them herself. Generally speaking then, when she does suffer in this way and release these people from their confinement, often then the hell-like realm will be transformed into a sort of paradise. So she does have this transformational power, which is interesting as well. But yeah, I definitely saw a lot of parallels between those two figures. It's a sort of an archetype, I suppose, that is quite common. This saviour figure, somebody who has immense love for the entire world, and that they will sort of act almost as a scapegoat or a sacrifice, that they will take on the responsibility and the blame and the guilt that needs to be taken on so that other people can achieve enlightenment or peace or whatever it is. So yeah, I thought that was interesting as well. I feel like I missed out a lot of things I was going to say. I'm working without notes here. But yeah, I hope that kind of gave you an introduction to Kwan Yin if you're not familiar with her. She is a very popular deity. One thing I did mean to talk a little bit more about her as a boddhisattva versus a deity, because she is actually worshipped in some places, I believe, as a goddess. I think in China she's generally worshipped as a goddess, but generally speaking she's not quite a goddess. It's a different kind of setup. But often in paganism I do see her referred to as being a goddess. I suppose if she's being integrated into a different belief system such as Wicca or other forms of neo-paganism, she's going to be interpreted as being a goddess rather than a bodhisattva, because that might be part of that person's belief system. So that makes sense to me, that they understand her to be an entity like the other goddesses and gods that they work with, and that makes sense to me. Yeah, I do find it interesting that, I can't remember if I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but I don't think I did, that she is so popular within Wicca and similar paths maybe that that embrace the three, I'm having a complete blank, the law of three, the threefold law. I can't remember what it's called. You know, the thing where what you put out there you will get back threefold. Apologies for that. I'm having a bit of a weird day. My brain isn't working quite right. Yeah, I find it interesting that Kwan Yin is so popular, because very often, and this is something that Wiccans get attacked for a bit, their understanding of goddess and their depiction of goddess is often quite idealized maybe. She's often associated sort of with the moon and healing and love and compassion, and Kwan Yin fits in very nicely to that. There's this focus maybe on love and light, rather than a lot of other pagans, by contrast, like to embrace both the light and the dark, and I would definitely be one of them. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. If that's what works for you, then that's absolutely fine. I would just feel that I've never felt particularly drawn to Kwan Yin, and I'm not exactly sure why. I am a lot more drawn to deities like Kali and Morrigan, obviously. Yeah, I don't know, I'm not exactly sure why, but doing this has made me more interested in Kwan Yin, and perhaps there is a balance to be found. Kwan Yin strikes me as a very human kind of deity, or boddhisattva, if you know what I mean, rather than say figures like, or particularly say Kali, or any very sort of primal kind of darker goddesses. I suppose a lot of the, yeah, if we're looking at, say, people who are considered to be enlightened or sort of savior figures, often there's this sense that they're separated from the earth, that they are sort of, they've become elevated higher than the earth, and the death and darkness that comes with that, where that doesn't really fit in with my belief system, or it doesn't at all. So yeah, I'm not sure that Kwan Yin will ever be a figure that will be particularly important for me, but I've definitely become more interested in her through this process. Hope you enjoyed. Hope the lighting wasn't too weird, and I'll talk to you again soon. Oh, Bumble's coming over. I'll introduce you. I don't think I've introduced her on the channel yet, so I hope you can see her. I can't tell what's in frame or not. Hello? Hello, you gonna say hi to the camera? Yeah, she's been like wandering around, just looking really confused. She's sitting on the other side of the garden, staring at me. I think she thinks I'm utterly crazy, don't you? Yeah, okay. Okay, you gonna say bye?